Welcome back. As the legalization of cannabis spreads across the nation, issues of social justice continue to emerge. Erika Tarantal profiles a local museum with a focus on cannabis and the impact on America's drug policies.
All art is supposed to create reaction.
Just a mile down Center Street from the Lauren Greeno House is the Core Cannabis Museum, open since March of 2021. Executive Director April Arasati explains the museum's first exhibit.
There's really no way to talk about cannabis without talking about incarceration. So American Warden is essentially an exploration of incarceration in America against the backdrop of cannabis prohibition.
American Warden is situated next to Seed, a recreational cannabis dispensary Arasati runs with her partners Perry Higgins and JP native Tomas Gonzalez.
We wanted to create this juxtaposition where you would have a legal market steps away from a jail cell and an exhibition that told you about how we got to this place and really memorialize what has happened in this country over the last several decades to people who engage with this plant.
It was her experience caring for her mother, who was dying of breast cancer, that drew Arasati, a licensed attorney, to the cannabis industry.
I really thought we could change the process of dying in this country by bringing people this gentle compound as opposed to some of the ones we use now.
As she continued working in the industry, Arasati grew increasingly frustrated with U.S. drug policy.
In America, despite housing only 5% of the world's population, we house 25% of its inmates.
She hopes this exhibit helps simplify the FBI data on crime in the country.
If you are any male born in America in this century, that's every mother's son in this country born in this century, has a 1 in 13 chance of ending up behind bars.
Arasati also wants to inspire visitors.
We need to make some changes, and that's what we hope will happen here, that people will have the facts and the information to create more reasonable drug policy.
Jamaica Plain, she says, is a natural place for that movement to grow.
When the ballot initiative came through, this community was one of the highest voters of yes to legalize cannabis. And we really wanted to do something in a place where there was meaning and in a community that we understood.
And joining us now is Tito Jackson. He's a former Boston City Councilor, former candidate for mayor, and now CEO of Apex Noire. And Eva Concepcion, a cannabis control commissioner, is staying with us for this segment. Eva, let's start with the questions about social justice.
Sure.
And the impact from the criminalization of marijuana in the last industry. You want to talk about that?
Where do I begin? So this is probably the most unique industry that we have in the way that it intersects with our criminal justice industry system. One of the biggest things, and my main concentration as a commissioner, has been around first increasing awareness that a criminal record is not a bar, a complete bar to entering the regulated industry. In fact, it's the opposite. We want more people from the legacy market to come into the regulated market and be able to operate under the Cannabis Control Commission. So we've been looking at opportunities for that. The other thing is I've done sort of a sweeping evaluation of the regs that we've had in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts before my arrival, and then identifying where some of those systemic changes were being prepared, where we needed to change within our own regulations. So there were things like there were records before the change in the law recently under Chapter 180 that said if you had certain records, you could not be an agent. You couldn't work at any establishments. You couldn't take advantage of this.
So there's a process involved in going through all those rules and regulations and weeding out those things that are going to keep people from moving forward. Tito, I want to turn to you and ask you, what are some of the ways that you're including those that have been disproportionately impacted by criminalization in the marijuana industry, and how does the guidance of the social equity program factor in?
Yeah, so one, Commissioner Concepcion, formerly Calendar, has kicked butt in this area and opened doors for my employees, because what used to happen is it was really possession that would allow you to work. The silly part about this is that if someone wants to get out of the quote unquote legacy market and they had a distribution charge or they had a trafficking charge, that person couldn't get out. In addition, that person has what I refer to as transferable skills. They can lead. They also know a lot about logistics
and marketing
and the like.
Exactly
So
right.
what we've done is we've been proactive. We went out and said that we are Corey friendly. And a lot of folks, this great resignation thing, that didn't hit us. We had 200 people apply for 15 jobs.
How many people on your staff now at Apex Noire reflect those that have been involved?
20% of my staff
Excellent.
has a Corey. And the piece with folks, I don't believe folks should be judged by the worst thing we've ever done. In addition, it shouldn't be that there are people who are making $100 million a year from the same thing that this individual was doing. So that's another component. And then I am part of the social equity program. And so there's some prescriptive language in the social equity program that actually pushes me to do something that I would have done anyway. But that's a critical
Tell us how
component.
your perspective as a Boston City Councilor has influenced your approach to running a cannabis business.
Definitely. So I view this as an extension of the work that I was doing on the City Council. Many other companies hire people to sell cannabis. I actually sell cannabis so I can hire people and pay them a decent wage. We have an amazing environment, diverse group of folks. We have 80% of my employees who are BIPOC. And then it allows for me to also do business with businesses owned by people of color, to use suppliers that are owned by people of color. And by the way, I don't actually have to have 12 other people vote on it either. So I love that part too. And mind you, shout out to my friends on the Boston City Council, but I just get to do this autonomously.
When you're the CEO, you're the boss.
Yes.
Ava, how do you plan to educate consumers about responsible cannabis use?
That's so I want to, and I plan to have more of a public awareness campaign around responsible use, not only that, but also around record sealing and expungement and how that intersects with the industry. There's something that Tito said around that triggered something too, because when we talk about equity and we talk about the provisions that we have in place, a lot of the times the focus is on the people who work within the industry. But we know that the war on drugs has had a community impact. And I think that that's something that people don't really realize, that even if you don't work in this industry, if you don't want to work in this industry, even if you don't consume, you are still being impacted. I don't want to go off too much, but you know, this is a $4 billion industry in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts alone. And every business establishment that has opened in the space, that operates in the space, they're required to give back to those communities that we've identified as being disproportionately
We're
harmed.
talking about this becoming a big industry. Tito, we're going to close out with this question to you. As the industry matures, neighboring states make cannabis legal, there's more competition, especially from big businesses with big names, such as David Ortiz, Big Papi. Those people likely have very deep pockets. What advice do you have for other entrepreneurs that are looking to enter the industry?
Connect with people in your community. Ask people who are doing it. I have helped 3 businesses get into business and open even before me. So this is really about lifting while we climb, and that's what Apex Noire is about. We want to be at the top of, but the Noire name makes me not forget that Black people have been disproportionately affected by the war on drugs, and we need to make sure that they are disproportionately in this industry
and benefiting
and benefiting and building wealth.
All right, Tito, Ava, thank you both for being here. From racial equity to gender parity, the new retailer that's breaking barriers, that's next on Cityline.